This is Twit.
Bandwidth for Know-How is brought to you by CashFly.
Welcome to the last episode of Know-How for 2015. This is our best of episode where we've gone through a lot of our episodes over this year and picked some of our favorite projects and clips for all our fans out there, and just wanted to say thanks for making 2015 a great year. So sit back, relax, enjoy, and we'll see you again next year. So this is something that you really missed out on. Game of Drones came for the New Year's party.
I was watching this. I saw your tweet, and I'm like, oh, I actually do kind of wish I was there.
It was really fun to watch. I mean, it was not a legit, but more scaled up version of when we fight our drones, basically. Because we'll take the Simas and run them into each other, but these guys were breaking props and stuff.
I mean, these are 450 plus.
They were
they're
big.
Super modified, like that one that looked like a chandelier.
Yeah.
I mean, they're basically designed to kill
fight.
other drones.
And that they did. It was pretty cool to watch. But I think next year we'll have to make our own drone to fight against them. Because I wanted to jump in, but I didn't want to use my drone for it.
I watched that segment live on the Twit New Year's coverage, and the whole time I was thinking, oh, you know how I would build it like, oh, and I would add, oh, and string and chains, detachable chains, yes! I was thinking all the things I could put onto, because I'm thinking the key is you have to have a long battery life.
Yes.
Because you can outweight a lot of your enemies.
That's true. If you're nimble enough, you could just like kind of dance around them until they make a mistake.
And then you have to protect, because the attack, and this is the same attack that we use all the time, is you get them from above.
Yeah.
Right? So you drop your quad into the quad below you, and you mess up their props. So if you could armor your props so they can't do that, well,
we'll work on that for next year when we do another New Year's thing. But the next thing was a little bit of sad news. Was the no hole, our basement no hole got dismantled because
that's right, folks. The no hole is no more.
We kind of knew it had a time of death because we were blocking the sprinkler system.
We were flaunting some major safety laws.
So while you were gone, we had to clear that out, and I did a little makeshift thing, which I then called the no crevice for the time being. But we're rebuilding.
I kind of like the crack of no.
It's
very
knowledge.
Tolkien-ish.
Yes,
yeah.
One does not simply walk into the crack of knowledge.
And we have some photos from Burke.
Yes, yes. And actually, it is a prison. And if you look at the next photo from Burke, that's pretty much what it's going to be like.
I think somebody got in trouble because they were like throwing candy bars through the.
Those things hurt.
Yeah.
They really stop it.
Emotionally and physically.
No, I'm like, and I'm eating them going, you stop feeding me.
So that's our new place will be. That's where we'll be doing our new projects and stuff. And then finally, I lost my little drone.
So like 80 feet, 100 feet up.
Yeah, we went to the redwood forest, and I got too confident. I flew too high into the sun, and
like Icarus.
Yeah, exactly. And I
you could have used one of these.
If I had the fire department come out, that would have been perfect. This was actually in front of the Twit studios like a week before I lost my drone.
Yeah, the funny thing is, if you looked into the Google Plus group over the break, obviously a lot of our fans got SEMAs.
Yes.
Because, I mean, we've been telling people to do it. Get an inexpensive trainer of $50. In fact, Leo got one. and practice. And a lot of people either put them in trees or burned out motors, or one really sad person, I'm so sorry to hear about this, but he thought that he could plug the same battery that you have on a large quadcopter into that. So instead of 3.7 volts, he put 11.1.
Ooh,
and
burned everything out.
All the blue smoke.
Ooh.
So there you go. Oh, by the way, I should probably mention that we're coming to the end of February, which means we're starting to get back into actual quad builds. We will be showing you a lot more of the mods that we've made to the DJI Phantom, and we'll also be showing you some of the mods that we've made to our 250 class quadcopters, as well as teaching you how to do brand new builds, like of this 450 class Dead Cat.
Yeah.
Or Alien X.
That thing's got some power.
Yes, it does. Now, speaking of power, you know one of the things that I've admired the most? Bending.
Bending?
Well,
air bending.
Yeah, well, airbending, waterbending.
I thought you were going for the Kamehameha
No,
wave.
that would be the back here. That's a little different. Now, I've actually been a fan of the Avatar series. The Last Airbender.
I saw the movie and I couldn't.
I don't do that. No, just watch the cartoon.
Cartoon?
The anime is much better. And Korra, the sequel to it, was an absolutely fantastic series. If you haven't watched it, buy it and watch the first and the last season. Those are the best.
Okay, but why are we talking about a cartoon on Know How?
Because I wanted to give our audience an example of using Instamorph. Unlike us, we suck at it. We're really, really bad at it.
I can do my little guys pretty well.
I mean,
my little army dudes.
I can do like trays, and
Yeah.
but I mean, someone who actually has artistic talent,
Right.
who can sculpt, can really bring out what Instamorph can do, which is why we brought in our very own we've brought in our very own Aman.
Aman.
Aman, thank you very much for coming into the show.
I'm here to take your bending.
Yes. Spoiler, Aman actually dies.
What?
I should have said that,
Whoa,
but-
spoiler alert.
He's a waterbender who can actually bloodbend, and he has learned the secrets of taking away other benders' bending.
Okay, so
Yes.
he's like the Darth Vader
Yes.
of
Absolutely. Now,
bending?
Alex, we do have a link in there that can show you some actual pics from the series to show you what Aman looks like. I think it's important to see the level of skill that Patrick had in playing with the Instamorph to get this. I mean, that's what it looks like from the series. Go ahead and scroll through a couple of those, and it's amazing the kind of detail that goes into making a mask like this. Patrick, show us. Hold that thing up. We actually want to see what you did here.
yeah.
Well, I heated up the Instamorph,
And
a
then you
lot
just-
of it. Like
you just stuck
half
your
of
face straight in
I
there?
got one of the smaller tubs, and I heated up half of it.
Yeah.
And I made it onto a flat sheet. And then I went to Joanne Fabric and got this mask. And
Is that a Mike Myers mask?
It's a creepy mask.
It is
But
very
It's
creepy.
just cardboard.
Oh, okay.
But I had all the Instamorph flattened out on a flat surface and then got it dry, but it was still pliable. And so while it was pliable, I put it inside this cardboard mask and just spread it out and got the shape of it. Now you can see the cardboard didn't come up to the top, so I had to do my own little bit for up here. But that gave me a nice smooth surface for the mask. And then I added on extra bits like the pointy nose and eyebrows. Covered it in spray paint, then painted on all the details. And I've got an Amon mask, which I was
That's awesome.
This is
able
one
to
of
bring
the,
to conventions.
we really wanted to get someone who could do cosplay, and both you and your fiance, soon to be wife, are absolutely fabulous at it. I mean, you've got an eye for detail, and you've got that talent that you can actually turn an idea into something that's sculpted, which is what Instamorph is supposed to do.
Right.
Which I could never. I don't have that.
No, I'm really happy that Patrick did this project because, so yeah, you wouldn't recommend just heating up the Instamorph and then trying to form it,
Yeah,
right?
that
Yeah.
was a good question. How did you get it to conform to your face without being painful?
Well, that's how
It's just
that's why
a-
I used this.
Okay.
This was big enough for my face. They sell smaller ones, but it wouldn't fit on my face. So I got this, and then just molded it inside that. And then
Nice.
all the details I cut out with a Dremel. But I had to be careful because when I used the Dremel, it heated it back up again.
Oh,
Right,
yeah.
So I
noticed
ended up getting a lot of little greebles sticking out, just little bits, but I could just pull those off and adjust it.
Patrick, I got to ask you this. I actually had that problem when I was sculpting some of my parts because I would make the template and then I would have to cut out like the mounting holes.
Right.
And so I would use a Dremel tool in order to get that out there. And I did notice that it would soften. But then I started to think, well, I can make a part and then soften it enough where I could poke through it with, say, a copper tube. Did you at all try to do like selective resoftening, reheating of the mask in order to get the textures?
I did. There were some areas that weren't quite perfect when I did this, and so I like for example with the eyes, I actually softened it back up and went in and pushed the eyes so that I could better tell where the edges were and where I needed to cut. And then up here at the top, because this mask only goes up to like the lower forehead, I had to do this custom on the top here. So I had to go and soften this up, and then I had to soften the original part and kind of combine them.
Wow.
And so I was dipping it in the water to just re-soften part of it, and then I would bring it out and kind of adjust it and smooth it. And
it looks cool. Did you find it difficult to paint at all? Were you able to?
I used a coat of spray paint, and that was good. It actually helped cover up some of the little holes. But then, because I picked glossy paint, the detail paint, I had trouble getting that on here. It just wanted to come off, so I had to do multiple coats.
How many times did you have to redo this? Because one of the things I like about Instamorph is that if you mess up, you just dug it back in the water and start over.
Heat it up.
Did you get it on your first try? Or?
Oh, no. The first try, I just tried sculpting it myself, and that did not come out very well. It looked like my face was melting, and that's when I went out and got this. And so I just threw that back in the water, heated it up, and put it in here.
Nice. And you won an award, didn't you, for it?
Yeah, we won. There was a group of us. We won Best Presentation runner-up.
Nice. Do you have any future plans to use Instamorph somewhere?
Oh, absolutely. I'm not sure what,
Groot.
but I definitely will go back to it. No, for Groot, I think I'm going to use actual foam.
Okay, well, actually, this is a good question then. For people who do want to start using Instamorph for cosplay, where's the cutoff? Where do you think Instamorph falls in as a useful material versus I'll use foam or I'll use clay?
I think if you're doing something you have a mold for it, it makes it a lot easier. So like this is just flimsy and it wouldn't hold up, but I could use this to make a nice solid mold, and this isn't going to change shape unless I like leave it in the car on a hot day.
What I love about that. Oh, hi, Amon.
Hi. What's going on?
So
Go ahead. Tell me about that car.
How you doing?
I'm fine.
All right. So, anyways, what I was
Amon
saying.
doesn't need cars. I just bend the air around me and.
He's a waterbender.
Oh.
Wow.
Oops.
Poser. All right. 8.1 tips, balancing your props for your quadcopters. And this is it, the last of our Arduino clock build. That was not me.
Oh, man.
That was not me.
Man, everybody was ready.
We finally got it. If you have been watching Know How the last couple of weeks, you know that we've been doing a build along with Mark Smith. That's Smitty Halibut. Smitty from DEF CON. He taught us how to make an Arduino steampunk clock. It was
So
a
cool.
fantastic little project that used a real-time clock on an Arduino Uno combined with some analog gauges that have been hacked to detect current rather than voltage. And, well, take a look. This is the last bit. This is episode 3 of 3. And after this, you'll know how to clock out.
So, what have we done so far? Well, we've put the pins on so that we can plug it into our Arduino. We have soldered in a reset switch so we can reset our hardware if we screw something up. We've got 3 switches up here that we can use for minutes, hours, and calibrate. We've got a red LED that we can use here for the ticking. We've got all of those switches hooked up to their digital inputs over here. We've got the 3 analog outputs going to the potentiometers. We have not hooked up the ticking LED. We should do that next. And we have not hooked up the output of the potentiometers to the analog panel meters. So that'll be after that. Let's go ahead and rig up the LED so that we can tick. I'm going to use green for this one. If I remember correctly, that was on pin 13. That is LED 1. And of course, I hit it. This is where you want to think ahead, kids. Notice how I put all of these wires on top of the spot where we solder for the LEDs. That was not very clear thinking for me. So, just going to push those out of the way. We need 1, which is right there. We'll be soldering from the bottom. Hopefully I don't heat up the jacket insulation on those too much to melt them and cause a short. 13 is right there. Okay, so I've got kind of a jumper going across. If I had thought ahead a little bit better, I would have made this a little bit cleaner, but this will do. So we got 13 going into LED 1. Like what I probably should have done is put the LED in the diode 4 spot, and then I would have been able to use that pin over there, which is much less crowded, but too late. I do not see any melty plastic bits with exposed wires. I think we're in good shape. All of the solder joints on the bottom look pretty solid. I don't see any solder bridges. So the next thing to do is to hook up some panel meters. We're going to need 3 pairs of wires coming out from here, output of each of the pots and a ground for each of the meters. So I'm going to go ahead and twist up some hookup wire, cut those to the same length, twist a little bit here just to hold it all in one place, then twist these together so they're not all wild and crazy all over the place, and then do a little bit of a harder twist at the end like that. So we're going to use that for the meters, we're going to use this for the board. So I've got a black and a red wire. They're each stripped. Let's plug these into the board. This is where we're going to get to use that big ground strip. So remember, there's that big one big strip of ground in the middle. We're going to use that, and then I'm going to use the red wire into the middle pin on each of the potentiometers on the other side, like that. Do the same thing with the next pair. This part is so much more of a pain in the butt than it looks. And we're going to do the same thing here. Hook up to the middle on the output of the potentiometer, and then one of the grounds on the other side. Kind of bend it down so that it's out of the way of the adjustment for the pots. Flip it over. So let's take a look at that. Looks like it's in the middle of the potentiometer and ground on the other side. Let's do one more of these. And if you had enough different colors of wire here, you could use different colors for hours, minutes, and seconds, just to make them easy to differentiate which one's which. I think we're just gonna play it by ear. Middle on the pot there. Ground on the other side. Bring it down so it's out of the way. Flip it over and solder. That is mostly it. Though I will confess that there is one thing we forgot. We forgot that we also need to hook up a real-time clock to this. Normally, we do that through these headers over here, the analog headers, but I haven't put a female on there. So I'm going to go ahead and take one of the 4-pin female headers from the switches and the LEDs over here, and instead I'm going to put it into the sockets of the 4 pins that we are using, the 4 analog pins that we're using for the real-time clock. So I'm going to go ahead and put those there, flip it over, do the same single solder one at a time trick. I've got 3 buttons. I've got a reset switch. I've got my 3 potentiometers hooked up to the pulse width modulation outputs. I've got the switches hooked up. I've got my LED hooked up. I think that's it. The only thing left to do is to plug it into an Arduino, making sure that you have all of the pins lined up. Then take a real-time clock, like the one that we had on our breadboard. Hook the real-time clock up to the correct pins. Let me power and program this Arduino. I've got my most recent code, Control U. And it's done. So if we actually go back to the computer, so we know we've got our code running on it, but we don't have any meters hooked up to it. So let's go hook up some meters to it and see what happens. These are just the meters that we were using on the breadboard version. Strip a longer chunk of wire off of here so that we can just wrap them around. Make sure to get the positive to positive and negative to negative, otherwise you will try to drive the meter the wrong direction. They don't like that. Always wrap your wires in the direction that you will be tightening the nuts on them. Otherwise, when you tighten the nuts, it'll try to unwrap the wire. There's a little trick to make wire wrapping these things a lot easier. And we have some analog values. If I push that button, it'll send it to full scale. I have not calibrated these yet. Which one is this? This is the middle one. So calibrate that out to full scale, turn off calibration, and it goes back to its final value. This one is apparently reading minutes right now because I have it on the middle one. Let me hook up the other 2 meters and see what they do. This one is hours, so let's go into calibrate mode and calibrate this for full scale. If you're wondering what I'm talking about when I say calibrate mode, go watch Coding 101. We talked about it in depth over there. All right, full scale, out of calibrate mode, so it is now reading hours. So we have hours and minutes, and then seconds. Let's get this back into calibrate mode and hook this up to full scale. Want to go back to the close-up? Out of calibrate mode, and we are now reading seconds. And there is our analog panel meter. And that's it. We have now officially taken our wild and crazy breadboarded idea that the wires come out a little too easily. Oops, now I just screwed up that project. And instead, turned it into a nice soldered project that won't come out quite so easily. You could take this and put it in a nice box like this or some other box of your choosing and hook up these, drill holes for these meters and mount them in there permanently and have a really nice project that you can put up on a shelf. That's it. Thank you very much for watching. My name is Smitty. I am at Smitty Halibut on Twitter. You can go watch me over there and hear me talk about all kinds of various things, including some projects that I work on. You can ask me questions. If you have put together something awesome that you like, if you've made something, if you now know how to make something, please tweet me with what you've done. I would love to see your projects. I would love to see the progress that you've made and your creative ideas, because it's really seeing other people's creative ideas that gives me the juices that I need to go do what I want to do. So I would love to see that. Please send me what you have. Thank you very much for watching. Back to you, Padre.
Thank you, Smitty. Seriously, that was so much fun.
Yeah, yeah.
We got to have him back.
He makes it look so easy to solder like that, too.
That's another problem.
He's got skills.
I was trying to copy him from the video. I'm like, nope.
Well, not with your
Nope.
soldering iron.
Nope. Hey. Don't make fun of little homie.
little
homie's been
I've
with me for a
named
long
it.
time.
I named him. He's sad. Yes.
Bryan, I see this sort of retro sign up here. I think that's our TD telling us that we're about to do some retro tech.
Maybe. I don't know if we did that on purpose or if he's just messing with us. But yeah, this was like a little do-it-yourself project. It's a wearable because, the hot thing is the Moto 360 and eventually the Apple Watch, whatever. But this will only cost you about, I think it's $30. It's an Adafruit project, if you've heard of that website. So they do a bunch of like do-it-yourself kits and things. And this was just a kind of a fun thing that I wanted to try out and show you a video of how to do it.
So to start off this project, here's everything that comes in the kit from Adafruit, and here are the tools that you will need: a soldering iron, some soldering wire, some clippers, and hopefully you have some helping hands to hold the board. First, we're going to put the board into some clamps and get started with our first resistor. This is a 10K resistor, and you can tell that by it is being marked brown, black, orange, and gold. Also, it's the only resistor in the kit that comes in that color, and it's separate from the a pack of other resistors there, so it's separated from the pack. So the first thing you're going to want to do is bend the wire leads so that the resistor can sit flat against the board. And then you can flip it over and push the wires out so that it doesn't slip out away from the board. So next, grab your soldering iron, and it's time to heat up the round ring pad around the wire. What you're going to want to do is heat that up and then put the soldering up against that to get a clean solder against it. We want to clean up the leads in clipping them, and this makes it easier to start soldering some of the other joints. Next, we're going to grab the little yellow blobby thing. This is a 0.1 UF capacitor. And so ceramic capacitors, like resistors, are not directional. So you can put these in any which way you want. And so just bend the leads and flip over the board and then solder the two legs just like you did with the previous resistor. So next is time to take out the remaining resistors that are all packed together. These are 47 ohm valued resistors, and they are colored yellow, violet, black, and gold. And you can place all 8 of them on the board as needed, but I will be doing it one at a time to kind of make it easier on myself. And all the places where the resistors are supposed to go are marked on the board with R1 through 8. So take your time, make sure to heat up the pads, and place the soldering on that to get a good solder joint. Next, you're going to want to clip all the remaining leads and clean up the back of the board. And then next up, we're coming up on a chip that has 8 legs and is labeled DS1337. This chip is the real-time clock, or the timekeeper, and it's a low-powered circuit whose only task is to keep track of the time. But this, unlike the resistors, does have to face a certain way. So make sure that you have the half circle and circle pointing the right direction, like I have it here in the video. Next, we're going to do the big microcontroller chip. This is pretty much the brains and displays the button handling. Most of the time it's in like a sleeping mode, but if you press a button, it wakes up to show the time. So when you press into the holes, make sure each pin has made it into the matching hole and is sitting flat against the board. And just like the other chip that we plugged in, it has to face a certain way. So make sure you've got that facing the right way, with the half circle and little circle facing the way I have it. And just, check it twice to make sure you have the chip facing the right way. And then solder all 28 pins. This will take a little bit of time, but be patient. And if you're anything like me, you'll get a little bit better at it each time you go, each next joint you solder. Next, it's time to place the battery holder and the timing crystal. So we'll be doing this pretty much at the same time. The timing crystal has a little quartz crystal in it that resonates, which helps keep the time. The battery holder does have a special way it has to go in, so make sure you slide the battery in by having the open side facing out. And then the crystal can go in either way. It's symmetric, pretty much just like the resistors. These joints are a little bit bigger, so you'll have to use a little bit more solder, and just take your time and keep adding solder until you've got them secured to the board. And then also remember to solder the 2 points for the crystal pin. And then the last thing that we have to solder are the 2 buttons that will be on either side of the board. They should snap into place, and like the battery, they take a little bit more solder to solder to the board, but take your time, and it shouldn't be too difficult. And then finally, the part that will be displaying the watch is the LED matrix, and the matrix is not symmetric, so it has to go in the right way. So make sure that you have the lettering facing the way I have it facing in the video. Also, double check that the 28 pins of the microcontroller pins aren't in the way of the matrix, and it should be able to sit flat and flush on the board. It has little feet on each end of the panel that should be able to press fully down to the board. Now it's time to solder all the little pins from the matrix. You could clip the leads, but they're pretty short, so I just left them intact and soldered along. Once you've soldered the matrix to the board, then you can get the rubber watch band and the clear plastic bottom together and fit those together inside of the band. And make sure when you put the battery in that it is the flat side is facing up and the bumpy side is facing down. You can wake the watch by pressing either side button, and then you can also dial in the time it goes year and then month and then date and then hour, and then you can choose if you want a 12 or 24 hour day. And there are a couple of different display modes that you can play around with, but that's about it. It's it took me about an hour to put it all together, and it was a fun little kit to practice soldering, and now you have your own $30 wearable watch.
I really like that. You know, it's this idea of building something rather than just buying something. That's kind of like the spirit of know-how.
Yeah, I mean, you get the soldering kit out, and you kind of make a few mistakes as you warm up, and then by the end of it, like, I was making better solder joints and stuff on here, and it's fun. Like, you start to learn all the different components. It's got resistors and the little chips and stuff on here. It's fun. It's a fun project. It took me about an hour to do, and now I get
you
to
learn.
Yeah.
You learn. And I will tell you this, because you're going to DEF CON this year with me, right? We're heading out to the desert. You will get so much more cred wearing one of those than you would if you were wearing a smartwatch from some fruit vendor.
Well, and so you put it together, and then the next thing that I want to do with it is do like custom watch faces and stuff right now, because like you can solder it all together, and then it already has the stuff loaded on memory, so you can play with it right away once you solder it. But you can get an adapter, so you can hook it up to your computer, and you can do like whatever you want at that point. So I'll play with it some more. I like it a lot. So, but it's not going to replace my Moto 360, but I will dual wield it.
You made that. You built that, and that's a
cool
conversation starter.
It's fun. It's fun. I like this stuff.
Yeah, you could just tell them it's the prototype for the next Apple Watch.
This is the next Apple Watch. I like it. I think it's cool.
Yeah. Now, of course, we've got all the links. So if you want to know where you get it, if you want to find the instruction,
and if you want a
pages,
solid gold one, no, that doesn't exist. You're not going to pay more than $30.
We could make it. I mean,
yeah.
I guess. Anyone want to pay about $30,000 for an Adafruit watch? We could do that.
Yeah, jeez.
Yeah. Now, before we go, I know it's been a while since we've done a parting shot because someone, I don't know who, someone always
it's like he wants to go home or something. He just doesn't like fun, is what it is.
He doesn't like fun, but we're going to make him like fun because what we have right now is an experiment, Brian. Now, you've heard of lossy compression before, right?
Yeah, like a wave format or something.
Well, wave would be like unlossy, so that's lossless. But like MP3, the reason why you can get those files so small is because you're actually discarding some information.
And compressing.
And compressing.
And then it doesn't sound as good.
It doesn't, that's debatable.
I think Alex would debate that.
Alex would debate.
He's a
audio
musician,
files.
though.
Audio files will say, look, I want uncompressed, I want the whole thing, I want it as high quality as I can possibly get. But most people listening to most styles of music can't really tell the difference between lossless and lossy compression. I mean, you can if you really know what you're looking for.
And you have the right headphones and everything like that, yeah.
But I thought what we would want to do is we'd want to take a look at a project that a man by the name of Ryan McGuire did. He wanted to show people exactly what you lose when you use lossless compression or lossy compression. So Alex, go ahead and run this. This is Tom's Diner. That's
Tom's. Oh, okay, yeah, that's pretty famous.
But what he's done is all you're seeing and all you're hearing are the pieces of audio and the pieces of video that are actually pulled out of the file when you use lossy compression.
So this is everything that's missing.
This is the minus. This is everything that's missing. So if hopefully you've got Tom's Diner running in your head right now, and he did the same thing for the music video. These are the bits of information that actually get left behind. He compared a compressed version of the song with an uncompressed version, and this is everything that was left over.
This is really weird.
Trippy. It's
it's like a really strange dream.
Yeah, the first time I watched this, I was like, but this is actually kind of cool. This is a visual representation of the things that you lose when you talk about lossy compression. And it's also a very good example of why they say these little bits and pieces can be removed without losing the experience of the song.
Okay. I almost want to just do a side-by-side because
But then we would have a DMCA
right.
And that would be bad.
Yeah. That's fascinating.
So, folks, what you want to do is go to YouTube and go ahead and search for Tom's Diner and just listen to Tom's Diner and then listen to that. And that's all of the stuff that gets left out when you listen to a lossy version of Tom's Diner. I am kind of tripping. Totally tripping out right now.
Oh man.
Hold on,
It's
wait.
like that music video I watched when I was watching that music video.
Yeah, mellow me a bit.
Huh. Okay. I wonder, could we do that with one of our episodes? Like, could we? I don't know, I have to talk to
we
Alex about
always
that.
record everything in a lossy version. So
Yeah,
we don't have a
MP4,
lossless
I guess.
version.
Or I guess I have to talk to Alex about that.
Well, there you have it, folks. It's not just a parting shot. It's a moment of techno zen. Oh yes. Okay, we've been reminded by our TD that we may need to move on.
We're getting the rolls sign. Yeah. Roll.
All right. So what we have in front of us is a wireless camera system. Now, this particular one was designed for remote control vehicles, not necessarily quadcopters. I've used this on boats. I've used this on, actually, I made an FPV lunchbox. We're going to be seeing that in the future. This one I have set up for use on a quadcopter, though. There are a few things that you're going to need for any kind of wireless system. If you go to the overhead, Alex, let me show you this really quickly. This is sort of the starter kit. This one came with a kit that I bought from Hobby King for $100 and included everything I needed. This is a receiver. So this is the thing that's going to receive your signal, and it just outputs to a screen or to goggles or whatever it's going to be.
Right.
This is a transmitter. So this is the device that's going to take the video signal that it receives from the camera, and it's going to broadcast it at 5.8 gigahertz.
That's a tiny little guy.
It's a tiny little guy, right? Yeah. And of course, you've got the camera unit, and then you've got antennas. On the other side, you're going to have some sort of display. Now, this one is a super cheap one. This is a Quantum. I mean, we'll put it this way: this entire kit costs $100 versus, like, if I were to get a Fat Shark.
Yeah.
That just the goggles could run me $300 to $500.
And Fat Shark is one of the more popular brands.
It's a popular brand. Yeah, Fat Shark, Father Sky has a couple. I like immersion rigs, but those are mostly the transmitters. A lot of this gear is interoperable with other gear from other manufacturers.
Did you have to put this together yourself?
Yeah.
Is that it?
That's why it looks so jank.
Yeah, I was wondering why there's glue showing on the sides and stuff.
This is literally, you can assemble this on your own. This is literally a screen. So I bought this one on eBay for like $4. So this is a screen that you would put in your car so you could look at the backup camera.
Oh, okay.
Right?
It does look like a little GPS screen or something.
Yeah, it's not great resolution, but what they've done is they've created this foam mold. And if you look at the back, this is a rear view mirror camera. That's actually where you put the little ball.
Holster, yeah.
And then they give you this lens that you can move back and forth to adjust it to your face.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, what's the resolution that the camera's putting out anyway?
The camera, I mean, it depends. This particular camera is decent. It's putting out, I think it's 600 lines of resolution.
Okay.
So
So you
it's
don't really need a high-res screen
really
for it.
don't,
Yeah. Okay.
And the other problem with that is high resolution cameras would need high bandwidth in order to make it work
Right.
properly. We don't really
So this
have that.
and this isn't for recording purposes.
No.
Technically, we want to be able to see from the point of view of the craft.
That's actually a very good point, because a lot of people think that when you see those videos on YouTube, that's what the pilot is saying.
I wish.
No,
Yeah.
never,
we're not.
unless the pilot has like a cable going from the quadcopter to his goggles.
Tethered in. Yeah.
He's got like a 50-foot HDMI cable, and he's just flying the quadcopter around his head. You can't do that, because it's just there's the wireless bandwidth for that would be enormous.
Right.
And especially since you're moving, we'll talk about that in just a bit.
Okay.
We're not trying to give you the rundown for all FPV systems right now. We're just showing you the basics. If you are going to create your own, you're going to need something to see it on.
Yep.
You're going to need something to receive the signal.
Got it.
You're going to need something to send the signal.
Right.
And you're going to need something to create the signal.
Okay.
Okay. And so that's it. You need 4 basic parts to any wireless camera or FPV system.
And then this is it all put together, right?
Right. So I 3D printed a little pod here so that I could put these components, so I didn't have to have them to jump out. This is not a great 3D print, by the way. It's okay. I'll make it better.
Yeah.
But let me show you really quickly how this would work. I've got this going out to both these goggles and to an up converter I installed in the back of the table so that we can actually show you.
The viewers, can see it.
Yeah. If you go ahead and connect that power.
Okay.
We got a bunch of power sources here we got to turn on. Let's turn on, so we got to turn on the
So I plugged in the camera.
receiver, we got to turn on the camera, and I don't know what that is.
We've got a lot of wires
I
on
got
the
a lot
table
of
here.
wires. Yeah, turn that on, and turn that there.
I'm seeing something in the screen behind
There
us.
we go.
There you go.
So now we are broadcasting from this camera to this receiver here. You hold the receiver.
We should just have the whole studio hooked up with these.
And actually, here, go ahead and put these goggles on, and then so use the slide on the side there to adjust, so
okay.
that it's super
All right,
high tech.
Here we go. I'm immersed. Where? It's the future,
Look
Padre.
at yourself.
Okay.
Okay.
I look as cool as I thought I did. Yeah.
All right, so hold this up, because one of the things that we want to talk about when we're dealing with these wireless systems is the polarization of the antenna. You'll notice that both of these are in the same orientation. These are circular antennas. We're going to explain in a little bit why we want to use circular antennas rather than linear antennas.
Okay.
I'm going to go ahead and do a walk around. Let me show you. Now, this is a higher resolution, higher power transmitter. This is transmitting at 500 milliwatts, which technically in this configuration is illegal. We shouldn't be doing this. A lot of transmitters will come in 200, 250. I've even seen them down as little as 50 milliwatts.
Huh.
But most of the time, they're transmitting line of sight. We're going through walls. We're going through
Right.
ceiling.
And here in the studio, we have a ton of Wi-Fi signals and stuff. Would that interfere with it at all?
Well,
or?
this is running at 5 gigahertz.
Oh, okay. And so 2.4,
yeah, 2.4 won't bother, but we do run 5, and yeah, it will be running into that. Now, these things will be frequency hopping. Oh, you're starting to lose my mic, aren't you?
No, you're good. Keep going.
They're frequency hopping, so that they'll try to clear away from any interference. But, like for example, this is where Burke spends most of his day. Hi, Burke.
Burke.
There you go. See? There.
What does Burke's shirt say? I don't push buttons.
Yeah, something like that. So, oh, hey, you know what? We haven't had a chance to show the know-it-alls
The new no hole.
what the no-hole has been demoted to.
It looks like a black abyss at the moment.
Yeah, hold on. Let me
Oh,
get some lights on.
Don't-
There we go.
Don't trip over.
There.
Yep.
So the no-hole this is more like the crack of no now.
Yeah, it's pretty tiny
Yeah,
now.
I'm gonna need this. Let's bring this
Oh,
up.
Yep, grab that.
Okay. So, it's not too bad, considering all the material that we're going through right now. A transmitter like this actually has a decent amount of punch.
Yeah, I mean, the video has been pretty solid. There are little hiccups, but we are going through walls and stuff.
Right.
So.
But the reason why I'm doing this is I want people to see this is what you would, what I'm doing right now is the equivalent to getting this thing, 100 meters away from you, in line
Right.
of sight. But you're not going to get super steady video. You're going to get jitters, you're going to get low resolution, you're going to get breakups.
But you know what? I feel like this would be perfect for if I was flying FPV. I don't need it to be super sharp, and this is way better than just trying to fly by sight.
Right, right. Well, yes and no.
You think so?
You will notice there's very limited depth of field here.
That's true. So yeah, that tree is coming up pretty fast.
Right, so like right now,
Yeah.
I'm next to this wall, but I have no idea that that's there. So next
There's
thing
a
you know,
wall
you
there?
bump
Oh.
into a wall, right?
Oops, yeah.
So that's, yeah, there you go. That's FPV.
Oh my.
Go ahead and take the goggles off. You look
I don't want to
ridiculous.
live in the world without the goggles.
Life is higher resolution than the goggles.
Yeah, it's true.
Okay. Now
This
let's
is
talk
better.
about some practical things with wireless cameras. I want to start with antennas because antennas are important.
Okay.
Okay. So here,
Yeah, why are they round?
well, yes.
Okay.
Okay, let's talk about this. So these are circular polarized antennas.
Circular. Okay.
Yeah,
Polarized.
actually, hold on. Let's point this at something that's not so. There we go.
Yeah, because the refresh on the TV is.
It's killing me.
This is a Padre cam.
Yes, it is. Yeah. Yeah. When you have a linear antenna, you're basically sending out signals 360 degrees and like 90 degrees polarization.
Okay.
Okay. So for example, if I have two linear antennas like this, they're receiving perfectly, right?
Right.
Turn this antenna like that, and now I'm only because of the way that they're polarized, the signals are only intersecting at one point.
Okay. So.
That's not great.
Yeah, you lose signal.
And imagine when you've got a quadcopter, mount your little circularized your antenna on the top. As you're yanking and banking, you're always going to be going in and out of the right plane of polarization.
Right.
Right? That's not good. That's really bad. What you get with circular polarization is rather than radiating out at 90 degrees, you're going to get a signal that kind of corkscrews away from this antenna.
Huh.
And you're going to intersect at many, many more points, and you get much stronger signal reception.
So these antennas are specifically designed for things that are moving around and stuff like
Right. And now let me show you what they actually look like on the inside. So those are encased in plastic. But if you didn't encase them, they look like this. These are little clover leaf. Oh, I'm going to have issues with this.
that.
Manufacturers, you know. Manufacturers be tripping. This is what
There
they
we
look
go.
like. Here, you hold
Oh,
that one.
whoa.
I'm going to hold it. Actually, here, switch to my cam here. This is what they look like.
Out of focus.
Out of focus. Now, this is actually important because there is left-hand polarization and there's right-hand polarization, depending on how and in which direction you bend these little clover leaves.
Huh.
The reason why that's important is I can operate multiple FPV systems, multiple wireless camera systems right next to each other on the same frequency if I reverse the polarization.
Okay.
So one is spinning one way, the other is spinning the other way, and I can actually put them right next to each other. That becomes
and
important.
they don't interfere with each other?
Well, minorly, very small interference, but most of the time you'll be able to burn through that.
Huh.
The important part is I can have multiple frequencies, multiple antennas, and have a crud load of systems operating at the same time, which means I could have like an FPV race.
Oh, and that is our goal, right? We're going to do an
That is our goal.
FPV race?
Right. We want to be friendly to other FPV systems so that we have the ability to do things like group FPV flights.
Yeah. Because that would be kind of cheap if your signal starts interfering with someone else's while you're trying to race, yeah.
That's one of the things that when I go to fly FPV, you actually have a flight line, and everyone who's going to fly in that heat will be on the flight line. You all test your FPV systems, and you make sure they're not stepping on each other. And
Makes sense.
you know, you also you're polite. So, for example, if I'm going to be racing with a bunch of other racers,
Yeah.
I'm not going to use my super illegal 1-watt transmitter.
Right.
Because it's going to be super noisy, and it's just going to blot out the spectrum.
The first rule of flying quads is there's no rules, Padre.
Well, I mean, there's no rules, but there's politeness. There's etiquette.
Okay.
So antennas are important. So consider the antenna that you're going to use because, yeah, it's different. If this was just going to be a spy cam and it's going to be stationary,
Yeah.
then I could use a linear antenna and I can get great reception from all
Because
directions.
it's going to be moving around, it has to be.
Reverse the polarization of the neutron flow. Wait, that's from Doctor Who. Thank you. Okay, so wait, what are you doing?
Floor cam.
Oh, wow. Very nice. Very nice.
It's much more exciting.
Now, another thing about that actual ratio, the higher this ratio, the less likely it is to interfere with someone else. So, like in my FPV kit, I keep a bunch of antennas because if I'm at a meet, I can swap antennas. And remember, they're paired, so make sure
Right.
you have the same antenna on each end, the transmitter and the receiver, to jump away from interference or just from bad signal. What you don't want to do is you don't want to create the perfect FPV system and never intend to change anything because I guarantee you at some point, especially if you're flying with others,
You'll
it's
have
not
to
gonna work.
calibrate it to something.
Right.
That makes sense. Yeah, you were saying, what was this running at? Like 500?
So this is running 5 gigahertz. And it uses two things. It uses a frequency range within the 5 gigahertz, and then it also uses channels within those frequencies. So theoretically, this particular system, if I max it out, I think it could do 32 channels or 32 different systems, even if they were all using the same antenna.
Wow. Sorry,
Yeah, and actually, Y Guy has a very good point. There are FCC rules, and it's not the strength of the transmitter because it's what's called the EIRP, the effective or the emitted effect. It's the amount of power you actually radiate, which is actually a combination of the transmitter plus the antenna.
Okay.
But again, what you don't want to do is you don't want to just blast out a bunch of random RF into the sky because it will mess everybody up.
Yeah. Well, now that we know how these work, what is the... Because I'm guessing you would strap this whole system to your quad, right? Correct. Battery and everything.
Correct.
You don't hook into the quadcopter battery?
I do sometimes. I prefer not to. It doesn't draw that much power.
Okay.
But I don't like drawing from my main battery.
So this will last probably for the flight of 10 minutes? Or
That will last
regular?
way more. I mean, the
Way
draw on
longer?
that, I could run that for hours on that one battery.
Because worst case scenario, you're flying it FPV and then all of a sudden black.
Right. Well, that's the thing. I don't, because remember, the draw on the battery, the draw on this battery is
It's just-
constant.
right.
It's always going to be drawing the same amount.
Right. Whereas on the quad, it depends
goes
on
ups
how
and
much
down.
throttle you're giving it. And stuff,
Exactly.
yeah.
And I don't want to like punch out. So that means I go full power on my quadcopter, and then it drops the voltage down below what that needs.
Right.
And suddenly my FPV cuts out.
Right.
A lot of people won't do that because it adds weight. Adding another battery adds weight. Even a battery as small as that can take away from performance. But if I'm just enjoying myself,
Yeah, and if you have something like the 450 over there,
Yeah.
you should have more than enough battery to take care of it. Okay, cool.
there we go. Something else that you can do, and I can't remember where you found this out.
So this was like, this is the next step. This is the final step when it comes to working with this gadget. It's a little chip that you attach to the board, and the nice thing, we talked about this before, is that this board is so old that it's not too difficult to actually solder parts to it. This was kind of tough. Like, this is, I would say, a little bit more advanced than some of the other soldering projects we've had. But yeah, what it does is it flips the, it's called a bivert chip. So it flips the,
Like the contrast.
the contrast, right. And so when you do that, it actually gives you more contrast when you flip the polarization filament on it.
All right. Now, flipping contrast sounds interesting, but I want to actually see it in action.
All right. Alex, our director, why don't you
Director.
hit that magical button?
So this is the final step in modding our original Game Boy. On the left, I have the original unmodified Game Boy. The Game Boy in the middle has just the LCD with the backlit screen. And then on the right is the LCD with the backlight and the hex mod. Now, what is the hex chip and what does it do? Well, it's magic. No, actually, the simple explanation is that it is a bivert chip which inverts the contrast of the screen, and by doing that and reversing the polarization, you get a much sharper contrast to the screen, and it's a must-do if you're doing this backlight mod. And that chip that I just showed is the one that I tried to do this project with, and it is nearly impossible to solder wires to it, so don't ever try and use just the bivert chip. Get this hex board from Thursday Customs and your life will be a lot easier. So, like with our other projects, the first step is to take apart the Game Boy and pull off the back panel here. Once you have that clear, you can remove the hex from its kit. The full kit comes with the hex DMG PCB, 4 pins, and a 1.5 inch wire, and some handy instructions here. Now that you have the kit out, you'll want to locate these 4 spots to solder the pins to the board. What you're going to do is heat up the pad and the solder and push the pins through the board. Now, as you do this, take your time and just try and add a little pressure to the pin as you push down. What might happen is there might not be enough solder and you'll have a little bit of a loose fitting pin. Just add a little solder to it to get it to stand up straight, and you should be okay. Just take your time with it, like any soldering project. And the first 3 usually go pretty easy for me. The one that I find difficult is the 4th pin that you try and get into the same hole with the capacitor. There's not a lot of room in that hole, so what I found to be a little bit easier is to heat up the pad and the solder where the capacitor are, get the pin to stand up straight, and then just add a little bit of solder on top of it, and don't worry about getting the pin to go all the way through because it's a really tight space. And once you've done that and lined up all your pins, you can slide on the little hex board and then take a pair of clippers and just chop off the excess parts of the pins and solder straight to it. Now what we'll want to do is flip the board over and locate the 15th and 16th pins that connect to the ribbon. Now what we're going to be doing is desoldering these pins from the board, and by doing that we'll be disconnecting the traces, and I'll be using some tweezers to kind of lift the pins up off the board. It's hard to tell in the video, but I've got the 15th and 16th pins lifted off the board. Just take your time and be kind of gentle. You don't want to desolder any of the other pins, just these 2. And you'll also notice if you follow the traces on the board that these lead to the 2 of the pins that we soldered to the board. Next thing you want to do is take that piece of wire. If you have a pair of strippers, get that, strip them and tin the tip of the wire. And by tinning, I mean put a little solder on it so that it makes it easier to attach to the pin. And the first one I'll be attaching it to is the 15th pin. And the 15th pin connects to the 01 on the Thursday Customs hex board, and then the 16th pin connects to the 02 on the board. So just think 1501 and 1602. Pretty straightforward. I put a little bit of solder on the pad to get it started, and then I just heat it up again and get the wire attached to it. Then I do the same thing with the 02 pad, and I heat that up and attach the wire. And then I attach the 01 to 15 and 02 to 16. Make sure the wires are where they're supposed to be. And just to make sure that I have all my wiring together, I'm gonna test out the screen. Make sure that the wires aren't touching each other at all. Like there's no soldering touching the 15 and 16. Otherwise you won't get a clear picture. And if you look closely, you'll notice that the screen is inverted, which is good because that's what we were going for. But now what you have to do is flip the polarization screen on the front 90 degrees, and that will re-invert the screen. And once you've put it all back together, you should have a screen that looks like this, and a much sharper screen, a much more contrast, and now you've got a cool working piece of nostalgia. And I don't feel like it takes away from the original Game Boy. It only enhances it. And I had a lot of fun doing this mod, and I hope people out there do too.
It's actually amazing how that bivert chip, flipping that contrast, actually makes it a whole lot more readable. I didn't think it would.
Yeah. Well, I mean, the thing I like about this project is it's repurposing old hardware, and I tried to do it with that really tiny chip the first time. The second chip I found that has the board attached to it makes it life so much easier soldering this to it. And I mean, I have all three of the Game Boys here. This one doesn't have a backlight or anything. So this is just your standard Game Boy, which is like, okay, in regular light, that's fine. Then you have one with just the backlight,
nice.
which is cool, yeah. And then you have the one with the chip. It's kind of hard to see on the camera.
Yeah, play with the contrast a little bit. There we go. It gives you so much more definition. It really does.
And you
it's
learn
weird.
how-
It's like you figure they should have done this at the start.
Yeah, back in 1989. But really, I mean, the nice thing about it is I learned about how the chip works, how the LCD panel works. And, this whole project started because I wanted to put a Raspberry Pi inside of one. But then I got too nostalgic about it, and I didn't want to tear up an old Game Boy.
So this is normally the part where we do a parting shot. But I actually wanted to do something a little bit more interesting. We have a post from 610 Bob, who is very active in our Google Plus group. He writes, I just finished adding individually addressable LEDs to my quad. Not only can I have cool lighting effects, but I can choose the effects using a 3-way switch on my remote. It works by... You know what? I don't want to read this anymore.
A lot.
I really don't want to read this. Instead, hey, Alex, instead of us reading this, why don't we just go ahead and show them?
Hey, know-how community, I just added some LEDs to my quad and I wanted to show you guys. They're controllable via my remote control. See, there's something else. What was it? Oh yeah, they're individually adjustable. And I can change the mode with my remote. The light strip is made up of LEDs that contain a WS2811 IC. This IC controls the red, green, and blue in each LED. Data is shifted in from the first LED to the second LED to the third LED, all the way until the end of the LED light strip. I split the LEDs into groups. Each side of the arm got its own group. I did this so that the LEDs are a little bit easier to manage and so that I can replace just a section for the inevitable crash that will wipe out a section of LEDs. To connect the groups together, I used a JST 3-pin connector. To power the LEDs, I used the guts of a 6 amp USB car charger. This should be able to handle a 3S and 4S LiPo battery. At the heart of the LED light system is an Arduino Mini. Besides just controlling the LEDs, it monitors a signal from the receiver to figure out whether the switch on my remote is in the up position, middle position, or down position. And that's it. Please remember that the code is on GitHub, so if you want to do this yourself, go right ahead, download it. Also, I should mention that the code isn't 100%. I just threw it together over a couple days. So if you're good at Arduino coding, please improve it. Anyway, thanks for watching. Bye! This is for when I want to scare people. Aliens are coming!
Thank you, 610 Bob.
That was awesome.
That was awesome. That was a lot of fun. I will say, I kind of dubstepped it up a little bit.
A little womp womp.
I may have taken his video and but it was a great job. Send us more like that. We love to see your projects.
That was excellent.
That
And
was very excellent.
that's one of the things I've been wanting to do with my quad since we first started. You put LEDs on I think the first quad you gave me. I wrecked it. And then I just haven't gone back. But I want to do, landing patterns and like you said at the end of the video, scare people.
Well, but just be careful because I did one where it did a chase around the quad.
Yeah.
But especially at night, it's so hard to figure out what the orientation is.
Jeez,
I got up in the air, I'm like, oh no. The lights are always changing. What did I do?
I have no idea where I'm going.
Welcome to Know How, the show where you get bit by a cobra and struck by lightning at the same time. I'm Father Robert Ballecer.
That was a seamless intro, Padre. One of the best we've ever had.
Oh,
Where
wow.
we bend, break, upgrade.
We probably should
Explain?
and do these things. Yeah,
Yeah, we
explain
should
what
have
this
worked
is.
that out before we started.
Wow. Oh, what is this?
Well, this, I think we both can agree, one of the best movies to come out of this year, Kung Fury on YouTube. This shirt came in yesterday, and I felt it was necessary for me to wear it onto the show.
Actually, okay, as much as I'm kind of wincing at our meme generator right now, it is a really, really good flick. It was put together by a bunch of people who just sort of kick-started a campaign.
Right.
It's everything you hated but now love about the 80s.
It's like,
the hair, the music, David Hasselhoff.
Well, they have like, graphics from today, but they make it look like there's tracking and there's the VHS kind of like filter on it and stuff.
Well, how about this? You go ahead and watch Kung Fury. It's about 30 minutes. It's on YouTube. It's for free. And then you'll be able to pick up all of our references. Oh, and by the way, Black Hat DEF CON. Bryan, we are not dressed like the Blues Brothers.
No.
But we are on a mission from GAD.
We are.
We are. Now, actually, this is our attire from Black Hat DEF CON. We just got back. You may notice you got to have the black fedora.
Well, clearly. I mean, that's the whole reason why it's called Black Hat, right?
You got to have the glasses. Oh, by the way, how many pairs of these glasses did you get?
So I think I grabbed about 5 or 6, which is probably a quarter of the number you grabbed.
I may have about 18.
Yeah.
18. But, it's events like this that stock me up on glasses. I lose these with regularity. So,
so then you're ready by next year.
Yeah. But I will say, you know what? I have so many. Maybe I need to give out some official Black Hat dark reading sunglasses to members of the know-it-all audience.
Well, if people swing by the studio or something, because we do have a lovely studio audience today.
We do. And we may have to give them these glasses, although I wouldn't take them because I'm pretty sure they're infected with
Those
pink eye.
ones looked a little greasy, yeah.
Not the most appealing.
Right. Yeah. So that was our Black Hat attire, but then this.
This is DEF CON. We're going to talk about this in a little bit, but these were the badges. Now, we'll talk about the whole tradition with badges at DEF CON, but we'll just say that yours lights up. Go ahead and light it up. I mean, you've got a dead battery, but you might as well show them what it's supposed to look like.
We'll try. So yeah, part of the fun was we went to the hardware village, and I was able to pirate some of the LEDs from your quadcopter stuff.
Yeah.
And then just, played around with it. It only took me about
I will say, it's normally way, way brighter than that. It's just that battery you've been using it
I've
4
kind of
days.
haven't taken this off since we got back.
Yeah, and I did a little 3D print so that my actually spins. So, I mean,
that's pretty awesome.
I'm just gonna say that, mine's cooler.
Yeah, I liked all of them and also was frightened by a lot of them, but this next one frightened me the most. Yeah.
The most, and Alex, go ahead and play this one. This was Michael Auger and Runa Dandvik. They did a presentation called Hacking a Linux-Powered Rifle. Now, they bought a Tracking Point TP750. It's based on a Remington 700 308 bolt-action rifle, but it's equipped with a scope that runs Angstrom Linux. It's got 255 megabytes of memory, a 600 megahertz ARM processor, 16 megabytes of flash. This is actually the exploit being run. The attack requires the Wi-Fi to be on, but once it connects to the scope, they figured out that the way that credentials are passed over the scope, it's horribly insecure. So what they did was they showed you, so they rooted in, and they were essentially able to affect the variables. They were able to tell the rifle things were true that actually weren't true, which is very, very interesting. Alex, go ahead and go to the next one. This will show you how it's actually working. It's very similar to the way a MiG works. So you pull you line up your scope and you pull the trigger, but the rifle won't let you fire. It won't actually fire the round until the rifle's in the position to hit the target you first pulled the trigger on.
Right.
That's how some of the old MiGs worked. So you would line it up and you pull the trigger, but the cannon would only fire when the computer thought the rounds could hit the target.
Yeah.
So this is what it is. You line it up, squeeze the trigger, and when it's in the right place, the rifle will allow the bolt the trigger to cycle.
Yep.
Yeah. So very easy. But then, Alex, go ahead and run it. After they ran their exploit, it does this. They were actually able to say, change the environmental variables. So look, they're lining up on that target, but they're actually hitting the other target.
Right.
This is so freaking scary. And they didn't like reprogram the rifle. They took advantage of some of the environmental variables that the rifle had.
Right, because you can plug in what the windage is. You can do what the weight of the bullet is.
Right. So they just said, oh, there's so much wind, you need to push the rifle 2 centimeters over to the right or to the left, and suddenly you're actually shooting at something else. Which yeah, you know, when you're dealing with a high-power rifle, that's a little bit of a scary hack.
Yeah, and the things that they needed for this hack was, I guess there's Wi-Fi on the rifle,
Right.
so that's what they were able to get into to affect things. And they can't actually get the gun to fire without the trigger being pulled.
Yeah, they made a point of that. So it's not as if you could hit a button and the rifle will fire. The way that it works, it's an interlock system. So when you pull the trigger, it tells the scope, that's what I want to hit. But it won't actually let you pull all the way back until the rifle's in the right position to actually hit what you marked as your target. So yeah, it's not quite Skynet just yet, but still pretty scary.
Yeah, but it was a good talk, and they're a married couple too.
Married couple.
Yeah.
I'm like, oh, you do this in your spare time? This is fun for you?
I think
cool.
the history behind that hack was that he took her to a gun show, and she's like, they put computers on guns? And
that doesn't sound safe.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's the Internet of Things that probably shouldn't be on the Internet. But okay, so that's Black Hat, and we are going to give you way more coverage than that. We actually taped, I think, like 11 presentations.
A lot of interviews.
Cutting them down. We'll use a few here on Know How, but you're going to find a lot on This Week in Enterprise Tech because, well, honestly, that's where it deserves to be. Let's move from Black Hat to DEF CON. Now, DEF CON, like we said, it's the social, right? This is your first time there.
This is my first time.
This was my 14th, I think.
Wow, yeah. Well, so the only things I knew to expect were if I'm bringing my phone, put it in airplane mode.
Yes.
Don't bring my laptop.
Yes.
Don't use the public Wi-Fi.
Yes.
And other than that, don't take any pictures and have fun.
Well, yeah, and they've really loosened up the picture thing, and I understand why they did it, because they're trying to get more mass appeal for Black Hat. And, but I found there were an abnormal number of newbies this year, like a lot of newbies, and they really didn't know the rules.
Yeah.
And some of the old guys were kind of being jerks. Hey, man, delete my picture. It's like, okay, well, take it down a notch. They don't know the rules yet.
Yeah.
But let's go ahead and let's talk about SCADA. Because this was kind of cool.
Which stands for?
Supervisory Control and Data Acquisition. These are those units you hear about in the news all the time because some brainiac decided to put a SCADA device that regulates a fuel tank or a pump onto the internet so they could do their job from far away. Well, SCADA devices were never designed to be on a public network.
Right.
They don't have security. Everything's in clear text. And Alex, if you go ahead and run this will show you some of the SCADA devices that we ran into in the SCADA lab. Now, they have these hooked up to little robot hands, which we had a lot of fun with. This is a typical SCADA unit. This is actually one of the newer ones. They had an Ethernet jack on this thing that you could plug into, and they actually gave you instructions on how to hack it.
Yeah,
and it was like 3 lines.
It was like Python or something.
It was Python. There is no hack involved. You just plug in, and if you know even a little bit of coding, you'll be able to take this thing over. This is supposed to run power plants. That's what these devices are used for, but we were using them to do robots.
Yeah, they're little arms, and they had little bottles of hand sanitizer that we were trying to pick up and stack. We actually
You can actually turn up the volume on this, Alex.
We were playing with these for a lot longer than I thought we were going to play with them.
Yeah, we had too much, and actually they had one of these that was rigged up to play Tetris.
Yeah, which I got my butt kicked
But
in.
I finally found a game that I can probably match you on. That's amazing.
I didn't know we were doing a competition until afterwards.
But it was interesting because, again, they were showing you the hacker ethos, which is these are devices that are supposed to be used just for data acquisition, just to turn things on and off.
But now we're sending inputs to them for an alternate use. Yeah.
And we're making an emulator, a game emulator on one. It was interesting. It was not scary, but very interesting to see that this is the new reality. You need to make sure that your devices are locked down if you don't want them doing anything else. The other thing was capture the flag. I actually really. Sorry, let's talk about badges. Let's talk about badges. Alex, go ahead and play this real quick. This was something that was set up in the Hardware Hacking Village. Did you know your badge actually has music on one side?
So this is a thing they do every year, right? Like the badge is some part of a project?
It's the Crypto Challenge. So this was someone hooked up their badge on a record player and ran it through an oscilloscope, because on the other side, there's actually a message. It's a sequence of numbers.
It was like 6B-71 / like it would read out the code.
Yeah, it was like this hex.
Yeah.
And people, but the result, it wasn't just that. People were also hooking it up to an oscilloscope to see if they could find anything weird on the patterns.
Which you never know.
You never know.
There's so many little secrets in here, and then you came back with some other stuff that I didn't know about either.
Of course.
But we'll get to that.
We'll talk about that. But let's talk about this. So, the badge at DEF CON is always a work of art. It's made by a DEF CON member by the name of Lost, who's going to be on the show, by the way. Lost has agreed to come on the Know How.
Cool.
He's a really cool guy. He's brilliant. He's artistic. You'll see a lot of the artwork that he'll do in our videos and our coverage.
I mean,
actually, go to the overhead, Alex. This is just for the last 4 years, because this is all I could find. I don't know where my other ones went. So this was from DC. Was it 20, 21, 22, and this is 23. They typically do an electronic badge every other year. So this was a DC 20. This was a humans badge. This was a press badge, an Inhuman badge. This was 21. So this was it was a printed circuit board. 22 had this, which was interesting because they did the whole the Carpenter film They Live.
Oh, okay, yeah.
Yeah, that was the thing for this one. And then this was a non-electric badge, and he did vinyl. This is actually vinyl. There's actually grooves on this thing.
Yeah. Well, and if you look, you can't see it on the camera. There's no way. But if you looked closely, you see, like, I went to DEF CON, and the only thing I have now is a record.
Right.
And then on the other side is a bunch of digits.
And that's the thing that Lost likes doing, because he does
Sneaky.
the Crypto Challenge. Yeah. And like, for example, on DEF CON 20, the lanyard was actually part of the Crypto Challenge. Those
little dots?
That was actually part of the code that you had to decipher in order to answer the Crypto Challenge.
Did you decipher it?
I did, but then I got bored because I wanted to build stuff.
Right.
See, that's the thing. You know this, because we spent almost all our time in the Hardware Hacking Village.
We did.
It's impossible to do everything at DEF CON.
Yeah.
You kind of have to pick one, otherwise you'll never really do anything well. You got to pick one thing and say, you know what, I'm going to learn how to do this, and that's what you do.
Well, like you were saying, there were speakers at DEF CON, and we didn't go to one speaker at DEF CON. That was like
get that
Black
all
Hat.
on the internet.
Yeah, that's what we did for Black Hat, and it was just fun to walk around the floor, because the next thing that I had no idea what was going on, but it looked awesome, was capture the flag.
Yeah, let's go ahead and run over to that. Alex, go ahead and use that video. Now, I did it right. I'm not filming any of the people who are running the game, but this was a visualizer. Now, the guy who made this made it Unreal. So this is the Unreal Engine. What he did was he took the network traffic and he turned it into a graphical representation of what was happening in the competition.
Right.
Now, the cool thing was there were actually LEDs on the desks, and it would be green if it was okay, and if red if you've become a victim.
Right.
And so you would get points for attacking and points for defending. So you had to defend your services and attack other services. This was a great competition. In fact, the way that they reformatted it is so much better than it has been in past years. The past 3 years, it's never been a close competition. It's always been like one team has all the skills and everyone else is a nooblet.
So it was like a blowout, basically.
It was always a blowout. But this, right up to the last hour of the competition, it was up for grabs. Very well done. In fact, we're going to have one of the guys, Chris, from the Capture the Flag team. He's going to be coming on to, I think, This Week in Enterprise Tech, talk a little bit about some of the things that they're hoping to teach by running, red team, blue team exercises.
Well, and out of everything that we saw at DEF CON, that was probably the most, I don't know, the hacker thing that I saw there. It was like a bunch of people over laptops typing furiously with a bunch of lines running across their screen. And I was just like, I don't understand this, but it looks awesome.
But the CTF, so that's elite, okay?
Yeah.
So you can't step up unless you actually know something because you get blown out. But they also have Open CTF, which by the way, you can also get an Uber badge. Oh, by the way, so every year they have the Uber badge, the black badge. And if you get an Uber badge by winning one of the competitions that's open for an Uber badge, you get free admission to the conference for the rest of your life. That's how it works. And it is the most coveted item.
It's the elite badge.
It is. Like, you have the Uber badge and people are like, oh, what? Oh.
Yeah. Not worthy.
I will never get an Uber badge. But Open CTF, Open Capture the Flag, also you can win an Uber badge. And it's trying to train you. So they give you a bunch of challenges that you can do on your own. So if you don't think you've got the skills for CTF, do Open CTF first, learn some of those things.
Well, and so after we got back from DEF CON, because we had checked out Open CTF, and I didn't really understand everything, but you can go on the DEF CON website
get the challenges,
and get the challenges, and people post how they figured things out.
Yep.
A lot of it that I saw was, because my code skills are very basic, was reverse engineering and using different types of code to figure out how things work, and then exploit that to get access to a server, get a server password and stuff like that.
Yeah, and it's those little exercises that will eventually let you string a bunch of those together into an attack.
Right.
Or into a penetration test. That's actually what we want. We don't want you really attacking somebody because that would be bad. Hacker Fortress was also fun. You had a team of hackers and a team of gamers playing Team Fortress 2. And the hackers were actually supporting the gamers, and what each one did affected the other environment. That's also open for an Uber badge,
cool.
which is fun.
There was a Tesla and a Jeep sitting out in the middle of the room that they said, come take a look at it, see if you can hack the head unit.
Tesla has a bug bounty now. Hack the Tesla, and you can win up to $10,000. Something else, actually, run the next video, the Wall of Sheep. Now, this is some of the artwork that Lost does. This is all over the conference. It's kind of psychedelic. It's what Lost does.
It looks awesome.
It does look awesome. But then the next part coming up, the Wall of Sheep. Now, this is where you do not want to end up.
This is where you go when you go on the open Wi-Fi.
Right.
The public Wi-Fi access.
But these people are all doing clear text, so HTTP, POP. All of these protocols have no encryption. And so I was talking to one of the guys, and he was saying they were following someone who logged in as a root at Oracle. And they were following him for 3 days, and it's like, you should know better than this, man. Now, they're nice, and they blurred out the passwords, but all this gear was next to the Wall of Sheep, and it's kind of fun to see, hey, you know what, we've come a long way, but there's still some people who don't understand the basics of security.
Yeah, there were a couple of people who were trying to get on the Wall of Sheep, but they were fully aware of what they were doing. But yeah, that's kind of scary.
A couple years back, I did that once. I hooked up my laptop and I was sitting at the Wall of Sheep.
Just to see.
Okay, let's just throw a bunch of stuff in clear text, and it's actually pretty good. I mean, it's good at scanning the network. It looks at everything going through the externals.
And then, so where we spent most of our time at DEF CON was at the Hardware Village.
A hardware hacking village. And Alex, you've got a bunch of pictures that you can scroll through for this. This is a place where this is actually in the HHV. This is also the lockpicking village. They were showing people how you could defeat those security clearance locks from the TSA. Essentially, it involved cutting up an aluminum can, sliding it around the little bead so that you could slide the bead back up, open the bag, and reclose it. They have challenges. Like, they give you the lock and you have to open it and close it.
Right.
Go to the next one. I think the next one's probably going to be from, this is the tamper evident. This is one of those boxes that has multiple layers of tamper seals.
Right.
And what they're doing is that's a solvent. I think it's acetone, and you can inject that into the glue of the tape and peel it back without breaking the seal. Get what's in the box and close it back up. And no one should know that you've been in there. Actually, I think it's a better shot in the next one. Yeah. So this is what the adhesive looks like. I really wanted to do this, but we were so caught up in the build.
Yeah, well, because we started our quadcopter project. We started building one there. We didn't have time to do that. There was also like the bomb opening one that we didn't do either.
Yeah, the box.
But this was what, one of the soldering
This
stations?
one of the soldering
that they had?
stations. We've got a bunch of, and I have to say, you know what? We could have gotten our work done so much faster if we didn't talk to anybody. But talking to people was the fun part.
Yeah.
So there's a free table, and people are just, you're welcome to come and just pull components that you need for whatever build that you're doing.
There's an Xbox motherboard right there.
It's
Yeah.
an Xbox.
360.
That's a 360, and a couple of laser printers. You bet.
Wow.
Yeah, I
Haven't
know,
seen one
right?
of those in a
Back in the day, I was almost gonna take that just out of fun, but I'm like, I got too much junk already.
Right, I was going to say, what are you going to do with it?
No, exactly. What else do we have in there? Oh yeah, so again,
Box of
it's
stuff.
take apart, leave apart. I actually left a bunch of LED light strips in there that we weren't using, and they were gone almost immediately. LEDs are really popular. Anything that lights up, people like it.
Ooh, shiny.
I know, a little shiny.
Oh.
And of course.
That wasn't at DEF CON.
Well, it was. I mean,
guess so.
We had to end DEF CON at my favorite place to eat in Las Vegas, hot and juicy crawfish. I have to say, at first,
Okay.
it looks like you weren't all that enthusiastic about eating out of a garbage bag.
I wasn't. I was a little skeptical walking into the restaurant because if you've ever watched Dexter, that's what it looks like when someone's about to get murdered.
There's plastic everywhere,
yeah.
plastic gloves, a bib, and Brian's like, "What are we doing? Are we okay?"
But I was pleasantly surprised because it was amazing. Yeah, it was really good. And also, you put on multiple layers of the
And
plastic
you thought I was
gloves.
stupid.
Yeah, I did. Well, I mean, usually I
Yeah,
do. But
it's just-
then as we went through the meal, you're like,
Whoop.
layer after layer. Yeah.
And you're like, "Oh, I get it. Okay, because it's
Okay.
messy."
Yeah,
So,
yeah.
trust
And
the
then
trial.
I
Trust the
did.
trial.
I think I actually hurt you, didn't I? I squirted some of that.
Yeah, so when you're cracking crab shells, you keep it down in your bag because if you put it up like at eye level, it might squirt into the companion's
Right.
eye. And
I totally did that by
hurts
accident.
A lot, by the way, like really bad. Because you can't rub your eye when your hands are covered in hot sauce.
Later that day, hours later, when I took out my contacts, it still burned. So cool.
Okay, now we're gonna get into Windows 10. Brian,
Yes.
you know the nag, right?
I do know the nag, and I was able to get rid of it by upgrading to Windows 10.
Yeah, this is true. So let me not dissuade you from doing that. If you are one of these people who has no reason to stay with Windows 8 or Windows 7, I actually really like Windows 10.
Yeah.
It works really well. It's great for video editing. I have my video editing workstations on 10. It's just certain devices, like all my USB cameras and microphones, have been having Windows 10 issues, like glitching and audio pops. I can't have that, so
Yeah.
Windows 8. Gaming, I still have games that run much better on Windows 7 than they do on Windows 8, and they're horrible, or they don't work on Windows 10. So I have a couple of stations that are sort of held in the background, and I'm hating that nag. If you don't know what the nag looks like, Josh, can you go ahead and go to, this is what the nag looks like. This thing pops up. I just booted this up. So this is, I hate this
There's
thing.
nothing worse than a pop-up in your OS.
Yeah, right?
I have to deal with that enough on websites. I really don't want to be greeted by it when I first turn on my PC.
And it's not just that it's a pop-up, it's like that there's no option here to go and shut it off. I mean,
Yeah,
a lot of times when you get pop-ups, there's a settings that say never show this, don't start this on startup,
Right.
and it goes away. There is none of that for the Windows 10 nag. Now, it's not just the nag. As you pointed out, some of these machines are actually downloading the installation file, which
Right.
Microsoft they had a good thought. They didn't think it completely through. But the idea was, well, when they do decide to upgrade to Windows 10, it'll be immediate.
there. It'll be ready. But what if you don't want the bandwidth being used up and you don't want the space taken
Right,
up
like
for
if
it?
I have an SSD, I don't want to use 3 to 4 gigabytes of my drive to store a file I might use at some time in the future.
Yeah.
Now, people have been trying different ways to get rid of it. In fact, the Windows Super Site, the Win Super Site with Paul Thurrott, they came up with a really good tutorial for going into the Windows registry and removing all traces of it. I'm not a big fan of doing that. It's a good method. I want to show you one that's a tiny bit simpler and I think is actually a bit more permanent.
Yeah, I'm always a little hesitant to recommend people going into the registry if they've never tinkered in there before.
Yeah, it's a really good way to nuke your system.
Yeah.
But okay, so here's what we're gonna do. Josh, go ahead and go back to my computer. What we've got here is we've got this, I'm gonna get rid of this Windows 10 nag. You have to know why that nag pops up. And it pops up because of a few different updates that were offered for Windows 7 and Windows 8 machines. Specifically, the one I want to deal with here is called Update for Microsoft Windows KB3035583. So that's 303-5583. It doesn't say what it does when you try to do the update screen, but what it allows it to do is allows Windows to install a directory onto your system, your Windows system folder, that will make that pop up every single time. It's also the one that's responsible for doing the nasty download. Now, so what we're going to do is we're going to go ahead and drop into Windows Update. So I'm in the non-tile or non-metro version of Windows here. I'm on the desktop. And if you go into View Update History here in the corner, it will give you a list of everything that's been installed. That's nice, but we already know it's installed if you're having the Windows 10 nag screen. So instead, if you go ahead and zoom in a little bit, Josh, I'm going to jump into the windows called Installed Updates. Now this is where it will actually allow me to get rid of stuff.
Right.
So what I'm going to do is I'm going to group everything under the names, and I'm going to go down to the bottom. And again, I'm looking for Update for Microsoft Windows KB 303-5583. So scroll down, 303. Where are we? Oh, wrong way.
Yeah, there are a lot of different updates in there.
Yeah.
And it was probably early on that this has been on for a while. So
This has been on for a very long. Although the other thing is you can't just. Well, we'll go into that. Microsoft has made it annoyingly difficult to get rid of this thing. So 303-5583. Where am I? 303. Help me, Brian.
I know. The screen's really tiny. I have to walk over to the TV over here. 583 is the last three digits.
Wait. There we go. Wait, up. 303-5583. You know what? Actually, I degrouped it on this. Dang it. Okay, so
Padre.
I know. So yeah, you could do it this way. This is annoying. I don't want to do this. So I'm going to do it an easier way.
Tedious.
Let me give you a command shell link. So I'm going right now. Actually, zoom out, Josh. There we go. I'm going to make myself a shortcut here. If this is actually a good tip. If you find yourself dropping into the command shell a lot, make a command shell shortcut on the desktop. Oh, hello.
So wait, what are you doing here? You're making a shortcut?
I'm making a shortcut
for CMD?
for CMD.
Oh.
Although I don't. Why did it not go away?
Do you have like a?
It's in the middle of the screen.
Oh,
now, when
tricky.
I want to run an administrative shell, I can right-click and I put Run as Administrator.
Okay, and you have to do that every time?
Correct. Well, if you want to run as administrator, otherwise it's not administrator.
You're going to have to
go
do
ahead and
for
zoom
this.
into this, Josh. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to show you a line that will allow you to get rid of that of any update really. So it's WUSA/uninstall /KB and then colon and then the number. So in this case it's 303-5583 and I want to get rid of it. There we go. And it'll ask me if I want to remove it. I say, yeah, get rid of that thing.
Okay.
And boom. I'm not going to restart now. I'm actually going to restart later because I don't want to have to reset the screen. But it's now gotten rid of that update. The problem is that didn't get rid of the program. The program is still there.
Oh.
If you go into your computer, so again, I'm going to go into my computer, C drive. Go ahead and zoom in on this, Josh. There we go. Windows, System 32. Right about there.
There it is.
You're going to notice there's a folder here called GWX. This is that insidious program that keeps popping up. I hate this thing. It's horrible. Please go away. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and delete it. But Brian, there's a problem. When I try to delete it, it's going to say, oh, wait, are you an administrator? I'm going to say, yeah, I am an administrator.
Yeah,
Please
sure.
go ahead and delete it. And it's wait,
Oh,
no.
access
Oh,
denied.
heck no. This is one of these things, again, in Windows 8. It's not going to give you ownership. So I actually found a while ago. It's called a take ownership script. All it is it allows me to insert a little entry into the registry that gives me an extra option on my drop-down menu so I can take ownership of any folder.
Okay.
This is incredibly dangerous, folks.
Yeah.
Incredibly dangerous because you could take ownership of a folder that you really shouldn't delete, and it will bork your Windows installation.
Shouldn't you just delete System 32 anyway? Just
Yeah, just get rid of it. It takes up a lot of space.
No, don't do that.
Please don't do that. Don't do that. Okay, but just to show you, Josh, go to my computer again and zoom in. This is the script I'm going to run. It's the takeownership.reg. And if I edit that, it will show you what's in there. I always take a look at anything that's going to edit my registry because it would be a really.
Where
really,
did you download this from?
There's the folder. The link is in the
the
doc. Right.
Okay.
So actually, let me. Format. I need you to be smaller, so people can actually see you. How about 28?
I mean, I could see it really
we go.
well. It's just kind of.
So I took a look at everything that's inside of that registry script.
Yeah.
This is totally okay. All this is doing is it's allowing me to have an extra item on my menu that will run through all the command shell parts that I would need in order to take ownership of a folder.
Okay.
So
okay.
what I'll do with this is I'll go ahead and run the script, and it will add that to my registry. And now, if I go back to that, remember that nasty little folder that I really don't like?
Yeah, that says you don't have. What do you mean you don't have
Yeah, what do you mean?
ownership
I am
over
the
that?
owner. This is my computer. So C, Windows, System32, GWX. Now, again, remember, if I try to delete it, it's just going to tell me, no, you need to take ownership of it. And
okay,
I can't
fine.
do it.
I will
but if
take
I
ownership.
right-click, I can now take ownership.
Nice. And that option was not there before.
That was not there before.
Woo.
Yeah, did all that stuff. Now that's all the dependencies. So now I own this,
okay.
and now I should be able. Oh, I have it open. hold on. Wait.
That makes sense. That makes sense. You do have ownership over it, but if it's open in another area,
it doesn't.
try it.
Oh, you know what? I'm gonna. This is the other thing I hate about Windows.
What's that?
The file's open, so I can't get rid of it.
Oh,
so
yeah,
actually,
so you
hey,
gotta
Josh,
go-
come back to us. What I'm gonna do is I'm gonna restart real quick, so it gets rid of all the.
Could
things
you
that
go
might be
into like
leaking the file?
Oh, I guess
Yeah.
even if you went in Task Manager, you can.
You can. I
yeah.
mean, because it's actually very difficult to figure out what's accessing the file at any given time. So what my favorite thing to do,
Yeah.
just restart Windows. It wipes it clean. Then you should be able. We own the folder now, so we will be able to.
So
delete
once you
it.
set the ownership, it stays.
It stays.
Okay.
There is one more step that you're going to have to do. I'm going to let you do this one on your own because it's pretty simple. If the next time you do a Windows update, KB 30355 or what 3035583 is going to be back in there. If you let it reinstall, this will happen again.
Right, because once it doesn't, my Windows will do the auto update check, and it'll see that the update is missing, and then try and re-download it again.
Right, and you'll actually see it in the list of optional updates.
Yeah.
Actually, no, I think this will be in the list of mandatory updates because
Yeah.
they consider it a security update. It will have that update. If you let it reinstall, it will recreate the directory. It will recreate those programs. It will start up again, and you'll get your nag screen. We don't want that. In fact, here, go ahead and go back to my computer, Josh. You'll notice that even though we've removed that update, my nag screen is back. And the reason why the nag screen's back is because we have not yet deleted that directory.
Right, because that process was in when you took ownership of that program, but then we couldn't delete it because it was open otherwise.
Correct. And actually, where are you? WGX. Let's get rid of you.
You can show that, Josh.
Where's
GWX.
GWX?
Oof.
This is ticking me off. That's the thing that's actually accessing it. I'm going to shut the thing down. Then when I shut it down, since I've taken control, I've taken ownership of that folder, I can go ahead and delete it. Once I delete it, that thing will be gone.
Right.
And then I just make sure that the next time I go into Windows Update, I hide that. In fact, let me show you how that works because I know there's some people out there who don't play with Windows Update all that much. But let's do it here. If you check for actually I don't want to check, it's going to take too long. If you right click, you can hide an update. So what I want to do is I want to check the next time I do a Windows update for KB 3035583, hide the update so that it will never be installed.
Do you have to worry about the KB 2952664?
Yes, that's I think mostly Windows 7 machines. The one that I have found the most annoying is the 3035583. Okay, now let me say this. This is kind of the sad part.
Yeah.
That's not to say that Microsoft can't rename it. And if enough people do this, they'll rename it, they'll call it something else, and it will reinstall. But then you just have to keep checking the user groups to see what it is that's causing it and delete that.
Or just upgrade to 10, Padre.
No. No. See, that's the thing that's ticking me up. I do like 10. I'm actually a supporter of 10. I really, really enjoy the OS.
Yeah.
But it's like, Microsoft, it would be trivial for you to have
Could I just
something? Just no, don't remind me. I will do this when I'm ready.
Right.
Stop popping up.
Well, and you and me are kind of the same. We're pretty OCD about our desktop screens. Like, I don't want to see the little tray icon. Like, even if it's not popping up, it bugs me when I see the little Windows icon down there and stuff.
Well, it's sort of like, this is my system. If it's my system, it should run the way I want it to run.
Yeah.
Right? And that's the whole idea. So why are you trying to get rid of that?
Yeah, well, that's why I've updated to 10, and I just gave in, Padre. I caved. And honestly, the main reason was so that I could stream my Xbox One games to my laptop.
Which is actually very cool. I will show you a video. We were able to do that at the device night, which you didn't come to because you punked out.
I was tired. Tibbs needed me.
Folks, but okay, so that's how you get rid of a Windows 10 nag. If you've got another solution, if you're one of the people who likes the registry solution from the WinSuper site, that's fantastic. But if you've got another way to do this that might be a little easier on people who are really worried about getting into the registry or playing around with system directories, make sure to jump into our Google Plus group, because that's a nice place to be, and it's a nice place to share some knowledge.
Yes.
This is something that we didn't just build, but this has been in pretty much constant use since we put it together.
Yeah, for better or worse, we've definitely put a lot of man hours into this project. This was my baby when I first came onto the show. You and Aya has helped me put it all together. But so 2 years ago, the original Pi, we made a main, we put it in an NES. We used the original power switch, which was pretty cool.
Yep.
So the LED worked and everything, and you could use this to send the signal to the Pi to shut it down.
That was big, because a lot of people, when they're done with their MAME, they just pull the power.
No,
they don't
you
want,
don't.
No, that's bad.
No. You gotta like unmount the card.
You have to kill. You have to kill all the processes. Otherwise, you leave a bunch of temp files. It's a really good way to kill the OS and have.
It's a good way to bork your SD card.
Yeah,
so that's still the case.
And this wasn't just a power switch. This is actually this is something that we purchased online, but we interfaced it with the existing power switch that came with the NES. So when you push the power, it doesn't disconnect power from the Pi. It actually sends a signal to this board, and this board sends a command to the Pi to do a safe shutdown.
Right, and it goes through this GPIO port right here.
Right.
So yeah, that was pretty nifty. And that took a little while to get. And we had to put a resistor in line so that the LED came. I think we popped a couple LEDs trying to figure that out. But so yeah, that was a really fun project. If you go back in the know-how like YouTube page,
it's like 66, I think.
It's way back there now.
Back. We're over 100 episodes ago. Oh, the other pieces in here. So we've got is this the original Raspberry Pi?
That is the original Raspberry Pi.
Original Raspberry Pi, but we needed to break the headers out because, of course, the Raspberry Pi is not as big as this case.
Right.
So you've got a USB. This is a USB hub that you've taken out of its shell. That provided both connectivity and power to all the different devices in here that needed it.
Right. Well, one of the first changes you can see between the first Pi and the second Pi is that there was far less USBs.
Right.
There's only 2, so we had to get a little board here to break out some of the USB stuff.
And then those headers go to the USB headers here so that you can actually plug in the controllers at the front of the case rather than having to open up the case and connect the controllers.
Right.
Then you've also got, this is a standard Keystone jack that you cut down.
I think we could do this a lot better if we did another.
Now we could.
Yeah.
Now we could. Because we had a deadline. We're like, just put it in there, hot glue.
And then, we have the Ethernet hooked up in here. And Ayaz was convinced that if we didn't have a certain length of Ethernet, we would have crosstalk or something.
You need to have over, I think it's, you want 13 inches of Cat5 cable, otherwise you get a standing wave inside the Ethernet cable.
At this point, I would rather just put a Wi-Fi dongle or something in there and get rid of all that cabling.
Well, that's the thing. I mean, we look at this project, and I love the fact that we did this, because this was so much fun, and it was cool. The first time people see this in a NES case, they think, oh, it's a Super Nintendo, it's a Nintendo. But we kind of moved past that. Like, we don't need to make it look retro anymore. We wanted to go with an updated design, and we also wanted to take advantage of the fact that they really improved the Raspberry Pi since the first version. And this is so much better.
Oh, yeah. The new Raspberry Pi kicks butt when it comes to playing old games like that. But not only that, but the community around building the MAME software, give them 2 years, and they've done a lot. It's a lot easier than it used to be.
Hold on, here. Okay, so I've got an original Raspberry Pi here. And so we can put them right next to each other.
Side by side.
Side by side. So
then you don't look terribly different, but you can tell like there's a lot more GPIO ports. There's more USBs. better processor, more RAM.
Now the new one does lose the standard RCA output. You could still do it through this port. You can get the analog.
Right.
But I mean, pretty much everything else is the same, aside from the fact that this is so much more powerful.
Yes,
It's
and
ridiculously more powerful.
the old one would take standard size SD cards. The new one takes micro SD.
Which I like, because in the old one, the SD card actually sticks out.
Right.
It sticks out from the board. This one, you can actually get it all the way in, and it just has a little bit of overlay.
Yeah, actually, what I did for this old one, I can't really get to it because it's like trapped under there. There's a little micro SD adapter that you can get. So if you don't like the SD card sticking out, you can get an adapter for the old one.
Yeah. But we don't have to do that anymore because we've moved on to the new hotness. Now this right over here, this is the new hotness. Let's take our beautiful main machine and move.
I don't know,
this.
Padre. I'm seeing numbers, wires. Which one of these do I cut?
Bomb.
Which one do I cut?
Always cut the red one.
Oh, okay. Well, that's easy enough to remember.
This is something we're going to be talking about. This was just a little 3D printed shell. I wanted a prototype box, something that we could play around with, something that was easy to access. So I made this really quickly. We're going to show you how we made this 3D shell. This was just Tinkercad, which we've shown on.
This is revision 1. Right?
This is revision 1. But there's a couple of things that I like about this. First, because we've got enough USB headers, I wanted to have the USB ports close enough to the edge of the case so that we could actually use the internal ports rather than having to hook it up to another USB hub.
Right.
We don't have to do that anymore. Why? Why do it? The other thing about this was I now have access to the SD card. So if I wanted to swap out the image, it does take a pair of pliers.
I was going to say, you kind of have access. Where did you put those pliers?
The pliers, they're down here, yeah. We'll show it in a bit, but now I can actually swap out the SD cards by using a pair of pliers rather than having to disassemble the entire thing to get out the SD. But the big thing you'll notice here is this is portably powered. So this is running off of this battery. Yeah. And we're going to show you how we did this because it's not as easy as just plugging in a battery. We wanted it expandable.
Oh, okay, and then you've got this, and there's stuff hiding under here.
We'll show off all of that stuff.
Oh, we'll get to that.
We'll get to that.
I mean,
a lot of that is sort of unnecessary because we are running off of battery. But since this is going to be our sort of prototype box for playing with Raspberry Pi projects in the future, I wanted the flexibility of being able to hook up an AC adapter. You will notice here, this is normally where you would power the Pi. That's the USB port.
Right.
That is a pain in the butt to have a wire coming out from the battery out of the case and then plug it back into the case.
Right.
So I'm using the GPIO header to power the Pi, but we'll explain why that's not as easy as just plugging something in.
Yeah, this looks really clean though. I like this.
We wanted clean. We didn't want a lot of excess cables. And that's what we're going for.
Because you could totally just throw your controllers in your backpack, throw that in your backpack, and then head over to someone's house and you have your game machine. You don't even have to plug it in the wall.
Right. And remember, we left this open, but the design actually allows for us to put a top over this thing. So it literally, it's this size. This battery will run this Pi for about 6 hours.
Nice.
And I can put a battery that's got about twice the capacity, so I can run this thing wirelessly for about 12 hours.
That's awesome.
Yeah, it is kind of cool. But we're not talking about the hardware yet. We need to talk about RetroPie.
That's right. RetroPie is where you will go to find all the software you need to first set up your Pi and then put your ROMs on. And 2 years later now, having done it, it is so much easier. Like, I was hesitant to even do a video on it because they have such a good website and following the instructions and everything. But it's kind of good to do a little walkthrough. But Alex, if you play the video, this is the website, the Pet Rock blog, and this is the community that has built up the software and everything. And we'll have links to this in the show notes. But if you go to their page, you'll download the SD card image for your Pi. They have a separate image for the original Pi and then the Pi 2. Considering I'm doing this new project with the Pi 2, I just downloaded the Pi 2 version, and they have this page here where they walk you through all the steps that you're going to need to go through, and it's so much simpler because I used to have to do commands in the terminal to kind of get some of these prompts to come up, and you don't have to do that anymore. They have these really nice diagrams for the controllers, but when you do go to download it, you're gonna want to torrent it. Don't direct download. I tried to do that.
It takes like 3 hours.
It failed. It
Oh,
failed like after an hour. So I had to download it via torrent. use a little SD card adapter to plug it into my computer. And another program, I mean, depending on what OS you're using, I'm on a Mac, obviously, so I'm using the Apple Pie Baker, and it's got a little cute logo.
See, that's what I love about this, because you download the image and then it writes the image to the SD card versus
Yes.
the old way, which was you install your base OS and then you use sudo apt-get to download all the packages. This
Yeah.
has all the packages in one spot.
Right, it's a complete package. You use this to first format your SD card, and then you take your downloaded image and you just copy it onto the card. And once you're done doing that, you plug it into your Pi and you just go through the controller settings. So I was going to try it with the original Pi just to see how it worked back to back. But I was working on this last night, so I kind of gave up after a little while. But this is the original Pi, and I sped it up. And this is the original interface. I just wanted to show what the original one looked like.
Which I really liked.
Yeah, it was nice, but I had to program all those names and descriptions and everything into it. Like, it'll scrape it a little bit, but it was not very good. So I was like, and it took, I think I timed it, it took about 25 seconds for a full boot up. I took all the wires off of the other Pi and I plugged in the Raspberry Pi 2 with the new SD card and OS and everything, and it boots up a lot faster, and the interface is a lot slicker. So when you first turn it on, it already will prompt you to input your controller settings. So you follow the prompt. Like before, I had to do that in terminal, and it was really difficult, and you had to do it by numbers.
This is a lot nicer.
Yeah, so this is really slick. But before you put any ROMs or anything on it, you're gonna go into the RetroPie little dock station here and go down to the Raspberry Pi configuration and tool, Raspberry Pi config. And what you do here is you expand the file system, and that just allows you to take advantage of the whole SD card. And that's something that's carried over from the last one too, but this was way easier to do it, and there's a lot less full shutdowns that I had to do. You just press F4 to reboot the emulation station. And then I was really surprised how easy it is now to transfer ROMs. So you just take your a USB drive and you put a folder on it called RetroPie, plug it in.
And it copies over.
Well, so I haven't put any ROMs or anything on it until now. And what it does is the Raspberry Pi makes a file system on it with all the emulator folders.
Oh, nice.
And then you take the ROMs that you have after you've plugged the USB into your PC or whatever, and you drag the ROMs into the according folder, and you plug it back into the Pi, and it copies them over, and then it just populates the emulators that you have ROMs for.
Oh, so nice.
Yeah,
so nice.
and then that was it. And then my ROMs were on the Raspberry Pi.
I have to say, because I remember how much of a pain it was every time the install borked out and you'd start fresh. That's so much easier.
No, this is...
The longest part was the downloading.
This was pretty amazing. Because the original one, I actually did FTP because I was transferring... it was easier for me to transfer the files that way. But just putting them on a USB, plugging the USB into the Pi and having it just pull them, it took 2 minutes because these are really tiny. ROMs are really tiny.
What about the performance? I mean, the Raspberry 2 is a considerable amount more powerful than the original Raspberry.
Yeah.
Did you notice any performance gains?
So the old Pi would not play the N64 games. It could not render. Yeah, it was not good. This one, the first game I tried was Super Mario 64. It was smooth. It ran really smooth. Right. So that was a clear performance gain. Those old games, if you're only going to play NES or Sega or something like that, you might not see much of a difference because those games are already so basic. But if you're going to try and do PlayStation, N64, anything with a little bit of 3D rendering, the Raspberry Pi is blows the other one out of the water. And with the new interface and everything, I didn't notice any stuttering. It's just really smooth going back and forth between things. So I haven't had a ton of time to just really audit it, but I'm really liking the Pi 2 and the software. They've done a really good job with that.
And we should say that you cannot just take the card from a Pi 2 and put it into a Pi 1.
I tried that.
It won't.
I tried that last night.
Yeah.
And no, I think the boot system is different. So yeah, I couldn't just take I wanted to take the old card, put it in the new Pi, and just see how it ran. couldn't really do that.
So let me ask you this: if someone has built our main machine from way back in the day,
Yeah.
would you suggest it's time for an update? Because it's gonna, I mean, they can use all the same parts, but it's gonna cost them about $40 to get a new Pi, and another $10, $15 to get an SD card for it, a micro SD card. Would you say, yeah, go ahead and update?
I would say update if you are at all interested in doing 3D games. So like N64, PlayStation games, maybe Dreamcast games. But it might be worth just redoing this project because how much better the software is.
Yeah.
Because on the old one, I really wanted to do Game Boy games also on, like Game Boy games on the big screen would be cool. But it was a real pain in the butt to get the emulator software to work.
My favorite part was when I was trying to get new ROMs to run.
Yeah.
I was always balancing it against the possibility that in doing what I needed to do to get it to run, I would bork the system and have to start from scratch. So I got to a point where I'm like, you know what? I've got enough games on it. I don't really want to mess with this anymore.
I think this whole project, like even the old Pi and the controllers and everything, I think these controllers I got off Amazon, these USB controllers were, I think, $10 a piece. The Pi itself, the new Raspberry Pi is like $40.
Plus $10 for the card, 10 to 15. So I mean, with the two controllers, you're looking like $70.
You're looking at it. The cost of this project is how much a brand new game costs now.
Yeah.
So if you're buying Fallout 4 or something like that, that's how much this project cost me. But I'd say if you wanted to try out the software, keep your old card and then just get a new micro SD card. Do the new software, see if you like it, if you want to try it on your old hardware. And if your old system, your old Pi kind of chugs on it, then yeah, maybe get a Raspberry Pi 2 and play with it then.
And the nice thing is, it's not like you're tossing out your old Ras Pi. I mean, you can still do plenty with the original Ras Pi. You just wouldn't do games with it. I mean, it could still be your general experimentation Ras Pi. It could still be your sensing Ras Pi. You can still hook up a display to this, which we'll be showing later on.
Just don't use it as a desktop computer.
Don't use it as a desktop.
I tried.
No,
It's not.
Don't.
It can't.
Just don't.
It can't.
Just don't.